Hello and welcome to the Tayport Community Garden on this unusually warm February afternoon. The birdies certainly think it's spring and time to think about the growing season coming up, and so today we're going to talk about soil structure, fertility and home composting and the problems that people potentially face doing this. But first of all, let's have a wee chat about soil structure. Now we have a wee crude experiment here in that I have 3 samples of soils from the gardens mixed up in a jam jar with water. The first one is the soils that we were donated, and essentially it's not bad at all. You can see there's a sediment layer at the bottom and the layer above it, a darker layer of the biologically active humus. Now this is where the layer of bacteria and microfungi are very active, breaking down all the biological material and therefore making its nutrients available to the plant roots. So that's why it's important to add organic materials to your soils. The next one along is from our potato bed, to which loads of compost was added last year. And I hope that you can make out that the bottom layer of sediment is actually much smaller in proportion to the layer of the biologically active layer, and the water is less cloudy. The third sample is from the poorest soil in the garden, which is underneath the conifer trees, and you can see that there's very little biological activity there, and as a consequence there's much more in the way of unbroken down plant matter on top. So with that we'll go to the composting process itself. Now lots of people have a problem with composting because sometimes the most abundant organic material they have is the grass clippings, especially if they have a large lawn. And quite often people tend to just put it in a heap in a corner of the garden where it turns into a slime, an anaerobic mush, which is just because of the lack of oxygen and too much nitrogen in the grass. And quite often they wonder what they can do to help the composting process. So first of all, let's have a look at this construction of our compost heaps, which were put together by our volunteer Will. These are very much the deluxe version. They're double skinned and insulated with this polystyrene. And old carpet is a very useful thing to put on top of your finished compost heap to keep the heat in. Now, heat is the one really important thing to try and achieve in the compost heap, because it makes the process faster, it breaks down any potential pathogenic spores or perennial weeds that might have found their way into the heap. And so in order to generate that heat, it's best if you store your other materials to one side, and then as you add your grass clippings you can then add more of the materials that you've managed to get in order to bulk up what's called the carbon to nitrogen ratio, because you really want about a 50-50 for the process to work. So some potential material that you can use. We're using our compost crescent here to grow our own comfrey. Now comfrey is a very good fibrous plant with loads and loads of magnesium and potassium as well as the nitrogen, and it helps to break down the other materials. The variety here is called Bocking number 14, and it's probably available for most organic gardening catalogues. And the reason it's so good is because its tap roots go way down and then can bring back to the surface any of the nutrients that might have been lost. Other sources of material are the shreddings from your garden arisings. Now for example, these are the old spent brassica stems which wouldn't break down on their own, but it's worthwhile maybe hiring a shredder once you've got a decent enough pile of material from the garden, which is we've done. So as well as the brassica stems, we've got the sunflower stems, we've got the sweet corn stems and other material. And any of the material that didn't break down in the shredding process, we burned. And if you come over here, I'll show you some more of the magic potions. So, some of our magic potions. This is the ash from our garden arisings, which were kept in a dry place. And the old gardeners used to say that the wood ash, maybe from your wood burning stove, was very good in the compost heap because it sweetens it. And what they meant by that was it just stopped it becoming more acidic. You can also use garden lime for the same process. Got to be quite sparing because a little goes a long way. Other materials we use, seaweed meal is a very good adjunct because it contains a lot of the micronutrients that we might be lacking. And lastly, compost activators. Now you can buy proprietary brands of these, or what we've done is made our own worm juice from our wormery. And a wormery in the corner of the garden is a great thing to use for kitchen arisings, except for cooked foods. So you can use potato peelings, etc., things that you might not want to put on the compost heap. So that gets diluted down, and once the compost is put together, we can then water it all over, or even make a very dilute solution. And if you've been down to your local riding stables, maybe get a bale of straw and keep that soaked for a few days and then put it in the compost heap. Other things that we have is we took a little visit to the local riding stables, which they're always very keen to get rid of their mixture of straw, wood chips, and of course the horse's dung. Now, the building process is something that we can do on another vlog to show you just how quickly it happens and how hot it gets. But for the meantime, I hope that's been a little short introduction about how to improve your home composting. And we'll see you next time.